All right. Hello, everyone. I see some of you are starting to log on. That's great. So we are just now going live this week with Gary Zukov and Linda Francis. We'd love to hear where you're from. So let us know in the chat screen. And of course, if you're watching this later, we'll put the chat screen with the recording so you can see who all was watching. So Gary originally wrote the famous Dancing Woolley Masters in 1979. And he got more well-known in 1989 when Seat of the Soul came out. And many of you may be familiar with that book. He has now written a new book called Universal Human, and it's coming out in June. And I love that title because aren't we all human at our very basic nature? That's what we all share in common. And so we met Gary and Linda in Oregon at their home in 2013 when Eben and Eben's son Bond and I all traveled there, and they were so warm and kind and welcomed us into their home, and we became immediate fast friends. It just happened just like that. And so much so that we visited again the following year, again with Bond, and we had so much fun. So Gary and Linda, welcome to our webinar.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Eben.
Well, it's our pleasure. I have very fond memories of meeting you all originally, and especially those trips when we were there with Bond. And I'd really like to start by going back to those kind of early days and hear a little more about how you got into the Dancing Woolley Masters. I mean, it's a masterfully written book. To this day, I'd say it remains one of the best explanations of the kind of strange world of quantum physics for the non-scientist. But could you tell us a bit about that history, how you got involved in that project?
Well, it was a blessing from the universe because until that time, everything I'd done in my life was for me. Everything I thought about was to benefit me. And the people that I encountered, I used to benefit me. I was addicted to sex. I rode motorcycles a lot. I experimented with drugs, and all of it was for me. And then I got invited to this. Thank you, beloved. My beloved's telling me, look at the people you're talking to. So I got invited to a meeting of physicists at the Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory. I've never liked science. I don't do mathematics. I was a liberal arts major, and I was amazed at that meeting because the physicists there were discussing the question, are we creating the reality that we're experimenting with? It was awesome. That's the question that my small group discussed in a coffee shop in North Beach in San Francisco. So I asked if I could come back, and they graciously said I could. And then I realized I'm not going to be interested in physics indefinitely, and I want to give a gift of what I'm learning on a silver platter to everyone who's interested in quantum mechanics, but doesn't have an interest in science or in mathematics.
I want to say this was in the mid-70s.
Mid-70s, yeah, it was in mid-70s.
Yeah, so it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So that is how this came into my life, that book, The Dancing Woolley Masters, and I called it a miracle. Actually, I've come to see almost everything as a miracle now. But it was especially a miracle for me then because that book became my first gift to life. That one was given with joy, with passion, with enthusiasm, with no strings attached. And that was the big change for me. So it wasn't so much a non-scientist writing about science or sharing the passion of the creation of quantum physics, which really in its simplicity is it's a remarkable intellectual adventure tale. And so that's how that came about, Eben.
Well, I was thinking when you said that, I don't know why, but I just had this feeling this was really, you wanting to give that gift was your first experience of what it felt like to create authentic power.
It was. There was so much richness in my decision to share what I was learning about physics. For example, when I first started, I asked everyone in the group, there were about 12 physicists, and they all said they'd help me except one. It was quite remarkable. Just all of them virtually said yes. They only had one requirement: get it right. They said get it conceptually, historically, and factually accurate. And so I would send them my notes. They would send me back their notes, usually more than I sent them. And all of that in one way or another went into the book. And I created outlines for chapters. I started to write, and my energy went someplace else. And so instead, I was, pardon me, I'm going to make this adjustment. Thank you for your patience. I decided that I am going to follow my energy and not the outline. And then about 6 months later, I noticed that the chapters were fitting together. But how did that happen? Because I didn't fit them together. I threw away the outlines. And that's when I realized I wasn't writing alone. And that's when I realized it's impossible to be alone. And therefore, it's impossible to create alone. All creation is a co-creation. And the richness and the depth of what I began to experience. And by the way, in the writing of this book, it came off and on, 5 or 7 days. I was so passionate about the book. I'd get up in the morning wanting to be with the book. I'd go to bed at night thinking about the book, and then it would all go away. And I'd start to be concerned about the monthly miracle of the rent again, and riding my motorcycle and looking out for me. And then the interest in the book would return, and all of the rest would disappear. And just the joy of being with the book.
So writing the book was actually your transformation.
It was my first experience of authentic power. My friends would say, "Oh, Gary," they could see the difference. I wasn't going out with them. I was staying at home. I was writing. And I would tell them something like this: suppose that you found an island and it was so wonderful, and you go there and you have a friend there who's really special. It's not romantic, it's just a good friend. And eventually your friends who are not on the island say, "Why are you doing this to yourself, Gary? Every time we see you, you're rowing out to that island. Why don't you give it a break?" And I would tell them they didn't know what joy and what pleasure I had going to that island. Well, that was the experience of writing this book. No cares, just passion and a desire to give. That's an experience of authentic power. It was completely new to me. It was given to me by grace, and everything that I've written and that Linda and I have written and the courses we give are to share how to create that gift in yourself intentionally. Authentic power. How do you become aligned with harmony and cooperation and sharing and reverence for life? How do you align your personality with your soul? And I could do these things because a lot of big differences have happened between the time I wrote The Dancing Woolly Masters and now. We're in new territory. And that's really what I've come on your webinar to share with everyone. It's what our joy is in sharing, is the new consciousness that's emerging species-wide and has been for a generation now. And within a few generations, everyone will have this new consciousness. And I'll be glad to describe it. And you can see for yourself if you resonate with it. But for the people who are on this webinar to be with you two, you are. The new consciousness has already touched you. I can assure you of that, or you wouldn't be interested in what Eben and Karen are sharing.
Right.
Well, Gary, thank you so much. That explains a tremendous amount to me. You're sharing that kind of deep kind of discovery about yourself and your relationship with the universe, about co-creating, because the book itself, that early book, is so well written. It received great reviews from Scientific American and other very respected authorities. So you clearly got it right. But I remember reading it.
That wasn't all my doing. I did get it right, and I give my thanks to the physicists at the Fundamental Physics Group at LBL.
Well,
Yes.
absolutely, and I think that's clear from the book that you credit them. But I would simply like to acknowledge your beautiful ability to pull it together, a very complex and kind of mysterious story, and yet you did it true justice in that book. And kind of hearing now about your the process and how you transformed and came into more of a co-creative mode with the universe, that explains so much to me, because it really was beautifully written. And then, of course, 10 years later, you write this extraordinary kind of next step. And to me, I'm fascinated with this kind of topic, because I've had to kind of backpedal and learn a lot since my NDE about consciousness, about self, about kind of the mind-brain relationship, and it certainly relates to physics. But to me, it's extraordinary to see the shift you went through from Dancing Woolly Masters and your deep interest in facile reporting on quantum physics, and then Seat of the Soul, which is an extraordinary book that really kind of focuses on some of the most important things about the nature of humanity and how we look at ourselves that I think I've ever read. So I think
But of course, the new book
Yeah,
incorporates
the new
all
one.
of that and more, which
we
is so
definitely want to get
wonderful.
to the new one, but I just
Yeah, but also I want to hear from Linda. How did you get connected with Gary?
Oh, well, I was a early reader of the Dancing Woolly Masters. I read it in 1979. I didn't even have an interest in physics, so
Who did?
I know that, yeah.
Yeah.
But there was something about the book. Maybe it was the Dancing Woolly Masters. That was pretty intriguing, and I know, it was my intuition. I got the book, I read it, and I thought, wow, this is a really interesting book, because it's about more than the history of physics. It's more than that, because it was really talking about what quantum physicists were understanding about reality, about consciousness, and that really interested me. So 10 years later, I see the book in 1989, I see Seat of the Soul in a bookstore, and I picked it up immediately. I thought, whatever this author's writing, I want to read it. So I started reading it, and it really, I'd been, spiritual, I'd been meditating, I'd been really trying to take care of myself, and for quite a while. But when I read the book, everything just kind of fit together. I think, oh, now I understand much more. I could tell deep inside, this book is so resonant with me. And so I began to try to live what I could understand about the book, what I could understand about authentic power, really. And I realized that I had a lot of work to do, much more than I thought. And so a few years later, I go to a retreat, and at the retreat, Gary is speaking. I was planning to go to the retreat. I didn't know Gary was speaking there, but I found out when I got there. So I talked to him, and the first time I talked to him, I knew that I was being connected with him. I didn't know why. What came into my mind was magic is happening, and I didn't know why that was happening, why that happened. I didn't, and it was interesting. I was with a friend who was very intuitive, and she said, she looked at me after this had come into my mind. She said, magic is happening. She got that too. She knew there was something between Gary and I, there was something happening. And so Gary and I just began to, things happened during this week of this retreat that kept putting us together in certain ways. But it was interesting, because it wasn't like, oh, this is my partner. It wasn't like that at all. He's the one that I should, it wasn't an attraction like a usual kind of an attraction that I would have at all. I knew it was much deeper than that. And I also knew that I was going to be on quite a learning journey if I decided to pursue actually having a relationship with Gary, meaning what Gary called in the book a spiritual partnership, and in the Seat of the Soul. And so we began that process because I was actually moving up to the town where he was living, the small town in Mount Shasta, California. And I moved up there, and we started practicing what was, I should say, because I really knew that I needed to learn a lot about myself, because I felt like I was living my life in fear. But I didn't even know I was living my life in fear because it was so normal for me. I felt super inferior to Gary, for one, but I knew that that was part of my path, to learn how to be an equal with everyone. And Gary was a major part of that change in me. And so we just began to practice together how to create, how I create authentic power, how I can be in spiritual partnership, a partnership between equals for the purpose of spiritual growth. And does it mean that I feel like an equal all the time? No, sometimes I feel superior to Gary or other people, or judging. When I notice that, though, I do my best to see where that is in my body, notice my thoughts, and not let that part of me control me. So that's my practice, to practice and create with love instead. And Gary and I have been doing that for a long time. And once we began to learn things, we wanted to share them with people. So since the 90s, we've been sharing everything we know I'm always going deeper. And so it's like learning, sharing with everyone, everything we know at the moment. And then we keep learning more and more. And so we've been doing that for many years.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's a little bit of it, a very quick version of it.
Thanks, Linda, because I think you lent a certain resonance to Gary that really grew into more than just what he had in Seat of the Soul. Amazing book as it is. I think that dimension of your partnership, and I love this phrase that I think you guys coined, spiritual partnership, and that's another book that was written. And of course, Linda, you helped write Mind of the Soul, Heart of the Soul, so many books, so many beautiful books. But Gary, I would love to hear you explain, because you use this phrasing, 5 sensory humans versus multisensory humans. And you're saying we're shifting from 5 sensory humans to multisensory. And that's a beautiful way of saying we're awakening to more than just physical reality. But can you explain how that works for you in your mind?
Well, yes. And it works in more than mind. It's if you have, and I'm speaking now to all of the people who are listening to us, if you have ever had the hunch or the suspicion that you are more than a mind and a body, if you have ever had the thought that maybe the world around you is more than just random, maybe it's got meaning in it, and sometimes you can even see something that's meaningful, that tells you about yourself, not about the world. And if you've ever had the hunch that maybe the universe, the way you learned about it, if you did like I did in my high school, it's random, cold, merciless, started with a big bang, although no one knows what a big bang really was caused by, or what was there before something banged and what banged, and all of these questions are still out there, although physics is solidified around this explanation. If you ever thought, that can't be, there's got to be more to it than that, and if you ever had the thought that the universe is alive, or maybe that the universe is compassionate or wise, that's a multisensory perception. These are the things that constitute the basis of the new consciousness, the expansion of perception beyond the limitations of the 5 senses. And with this expansion comes new potential. One of the greatest of the new potentials is authentic power. The old understanding of power is the ability to manipulate and control. That was the understanding that almost everyone had before this shift in consciousness began to make itself felt. Now, the big news is there's a shift, and equally big news is the pursuit of external power, ability to manipulate and control, is now counterproductive to our evolution. It produces only violence and destruction. In other words, what used to be our good medicine has now become poison. It's toxic. It used to be the way that as a 5-sensory species we survived by learning how to manipulate and to control the environment, including other people. Now it won't work. It backfires in a very big way. So that is a part of the new consciousness, multisensory perception. By the way, it's multisensory perception because the 5 senses together form a single sensory system whose object of detection is physical reality. Now we have another sensory system. That's the one I'm describing. And so we are multisensory. Multisensory perception and the understanding of power as authentic, as alignment of your personality with your soul, as alignment with the intentions of your soul, harmony, cooperation, sharing, reverence for life. Those two, multisensory perception and authentic power, are the new consciousness. And the old consciousness is 5-sensory perception and power as external, as ability to control and manipulate. Now, not everyone is multisensory, but within a few human generations, everyone will be. Here's the thing, at least from my point of view. Multisensory perception is the gift from the universe. All you have to do is unwrap it and experiment with it. But becoming multisensory doesn't mean you become more powerful, kinder, wiser. It means you become more aware. Now, what do you do with your awareness? That's where creating authentic power comes in. That requires work. It requires commitment and courage and compassion and conscious communication and actions. It requires the tools, applying the tools to create authentic power, emotional awareness. What are your emotions? How do you experience them? Somatically, specifically, where in your body, say in these areas of your body, are you experiencing physical sensations such as stabbing, pulsing, throbbing, beating, churning, burning? If they are painful experiences like that, you know that fear is present in you. And if they're wonderful, blissful experiences, then you know that love is present in you. And then creating authentic power is simply using the tools to choose love all the time, no matter what's happening inside of you, like anger, rage, jealousy, resentment, righteousness, or what's happening outside of you, like another 9/11 event, or the person you thought you were going to be with through your life divorces you, or one of your children gets sick or dies. Through all of that, through anything that the Earth School provides you, the ability to experience it fully, never repressing or suppressing or denying an emotion, but in that moment, choosing to act from the healthiest part of your personality that you can, one that is grateful or appreciative, patient, content, caring, in awe of the universe, instead of acting the way that you have almost all of your life, robotically.
You know, I was thinking, beloved, I love
unconsciously.
I love all the comments.
I didn't see those.
I know you
Yes, someone is asking if you feel that your writing is automatic writing. You were saying you didn't write it; it came to you. Was it like that, or
no, it wasn't. It wasn't like that. I'm not a channel. I'm a co-creator. It's
like that. Yeah.
it must be nice to be able to close your eyes and type on your keyboard and open your eyes and find a book. But that's not how it works with me. I have to work, and I have to work hard. But the ideas that I'm sharing are not mine. They belong to the universe.
Yeah.
But it's my experience I feel, in what could be called past lives. I have a different way of looking at that, but that's something that's understandable to a lot of people. My experiences as maybe a scribe. I know some of my aptitudes and interests are in language. I love language. I love languages. English is a really interesting language, and I love clothing experiences and insights with words. So this is my gift. Some people are great athletes. I'm not saying I'm a great writer, but this is my gift, one of them. And so I use those as I learn from and with the universe. So you might say that if you're, and the gift that you have to give might not be writing, and it might not be an athlete, it might be raising a family or changing business or something you're going to contribute to science or to jurisprudence or to education. But whatever it is, it's going to satisfy you when you start doing it, because that is, you can use meaning as your compass in life. As you're aligning your personality with your soul, your life fills with meaning. And if you're going in the opposite direction that your soul wants you to go, oh, that's painful. I've done that. That's a world of depression and despair and anger and judgment and questions like, is this all there is? There's got to be more than this. I didn't sign up for this. Those are the kind of thoughts that come from not moving in the direction that your soul wants you to move. It's the difference between pain and bliss, between love and fear.
I would say your love for the craft clearly shows, Gary, because your books are so beautifully written and very authentic, coming from the heart.
And certainly you write with
that's
incredible clarity.
Yeah, your clarity, I mean, it's a real gift, but also the authenticity comes through. And I love especially this whole notion of authentic power, and how you in your newest book, Universal Human, I love how you brought it down and kind of simplified it, this love versus fear, and that we all can make those choices in our daily lives. And that is really the secret to getting to that authentic power. But I would say another thing is an evolving sense of kind of oneness and connection. Like when you wrote Dancing Woolly Masters, you know, quantum physicists had already gotten into this idea of oneness, one mind. You know, Schrodinger and others had made comments about the findings of their experiments, showing very deeply that this consciousness seemed to be one and universal. And I would say that is a lot of where the revolution in consciousness studies is taking this world, is much more of this realization of the oneness. And that's where love and fear can sort so much more beautifully, because you realize if we're all one, and it certainly seems natural to love ourselves, then love should emerge kind of triumphant in this creation of authentic power. Wondering if you have a comment about kind of evolution in our society, this notion of oneness, of kind of shared purpose, and where that love really emerges as the key.
It is the key, and it emerges in you. And I'm not sure that quantum physics would produces exactly what you thought, what your take on it was, but it does produce, in some of the main interpretations of the quantum theory, the inescapable conclusion that consciousness is involved in shaping our experience. That was the power of quantum physics. And at the same time, it seemed to explain or to reach the hegemony of the intellect. All these things were fascinating. And I do love, I won't call it my craft. I mean, I love doing it. It gives me fulfillment. It gives me joy. It gives me satisfaction. But what I've come to love are people. And it's life that's really the miracle. And all of this emerges. It doesn't emerge, it can emerge as a notion. Everything that I wrote, After the Dancing Willie Masters, I started to write a book called Physics and Consciousness, a 3-volume, a trilogy, all originating from here upward. And I thought it was good. I really liked it. But then I began to, what I learned about non-physical reality in writing the Dancing Willie Masters came to me in full color as I began to realize that I didn't want to finish Physics and Consciousness and make a reputation for a brilliant analyzer of physics and consciousness because, first of all, well, I didn't want to do it because there were bigger fish to fry. Oh, that's a terrible analogy. But the thing is, more important to me, they called me more deeply and more meaningfully. And that was that we are wise and compassionate, powerful and loving spirits. And all of the things that some of the great religions like Buddhism and Hinduism and Christianity hint at are true. Consciousness and responsibility don't end at death. Death of what? Well, there's got to be, I didn't figure this out. I began to see it and I began to be taught it. And so I wanted to share it. And I've actually forgotten your question now.
Oh, I think you did a good job.
Yeah, I think you did a very good job. You really kind of hit the nail on the head. What I was trying to do was see, this notion of oneness, that we're all really together. It's something that emerges deeply from the NDE community, kind of a oneness with God, with the creative source of the universe, as well as oneness with not only our fellow humans, but with all of life. And I think you did a beautiful job of kind of conveying your read on all that. To me, it involves quantum physics, but as you pointed out, it's much more about human experience, really. And I'd say that's where you started to really hit the nail on the head with your more recent work.
Oh, thank you so much, Eben. I appreciate those kind words. Linda and I start all of our events, and I started the books too, as you noticed, by saying, in essence, we don't expect you to believe anything that we say just because we say it.
Right.
And in fact, we suggest you don't. And we suggest that you don't believe anything that anyone says just because they've got a microphone or a stage or a television show or an internet or an internet presence. But try it on yourself. If you resonate with something you hear, see if it works for you.
Yeah.
And if it does, experiment with it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, throw it away.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
That's the sense in which we're sharing, and we're sharing right now. And so I appreciate so much being able to do this, because these kind of sharings I feel are the most important. From the 5 sensory perspective, the greatest things in life are those that affect the most people. But from a multi-sensory perspective, it's the opposite. The greatest things in life, the things that affect the most people, for example, international relations, which I studied at Harvard, by the way, are not the greatest things in life because there's no spiritual dimension to them. The greatest thing in life happens when inside an individual, when that person makes a choice of love instead of fear. Yeah. When, for example, you're feeling a moment of tenderness and you choose to stay in that moment of tenderness instead of relapse into judgment or distance. So that is one of the greatest things in the world.
You said something a moment ago that I think is really critical to point out. And, yes, we have a choice in every moment. What choice do we make? We have that ability to make a choice. But you also brought up that we have a responsibility. And this idea that we're all connected, we're all part of this one consciousness, and that what we do affects another. It really is a responsibility. And I know when I first learned about heart math and how the heart radiates whatever emotions you're feeling out into the world around you and actually affects people, I took that as a responsibility that I really didn't want to affect other people with my stuff. And so that really motivated me to want to clear all that out. But it's also another kind of, can both of you maybe speak to this idea of responsibility? Because it's not just we're just here and things are unfolding. We actually play a role. And so it becomes a responsibility as a co-creator to really put conscious effort into what we are creating together. Can you, each of you maybe speak to that from your own perspectives? The responsibility.
Yeah. I know, for some reason, what came to me was just to talk a little bit about spiritual partnership. So in relationships, a lot of times people think if they're in a fight, it's the other person is supposed to make up to them. You know, it's like, well, you're the one who said that, so you make it up to me. You know, you say, I'm not going to talk to you until you apologize to me. Something like that. Things like that happen. But actually, if you're really taking responsibility, my responsibility is to come from love all the time, no matter what someone else is doing. Whatever they're doing, they're doing. They may be in fear in that moment, but my responsibility is not to judge them, to come from love, and to do my very best that I can to trust. Here's some things that I will share with you that I think might be helpful. When I'm feeling fear in me for whatever reason, I'm angry or I'm feeling inferior or whatever, I'll be with myself and say, okay, it's time to trust. And what I mean by trust is trust the universe. Trust and then relax. Then I can relax if I'm trusting to know that everything that's happening right now is happening to help me, to support me, and is an opportunity for me. And then what I do is I relax when I can, and then I do my very best in that moment, because if I'm already trusting and I'm relaxing, then I have a much better chance of being able to say something with love or act from love. And then I enjoy myself. That's the last part of that. So that's something that always works really well for me when I remember it. Sometimes when I'm in fear, I forget that. And we help each other. As spiritual partners, we can remind each other. And anyone else, it's not just a couples thing. I'm not talking about spiritual partnership as a couples thing. I'm talking about it as any person who wants to create authentic power thing. So that you support each other when it's like if I'm in fear and I don't see it, because a lot of times we have things that happen. And in fact, we were talking to some people last night in our program, one of our programs, and we were talking about how we have unconscious habits that that words that we use that we don't even know, and they have power. And so if we keep saying those things over and over and don't even realize it, then we're on another track. And so if we have someone, because really the whole point was, if you notice it in yourself, if you have things like that, or you can have, or your spiritual partner can support you in saying, oh, I think you're doing that thing again that you didn't realize that you were doing. You know, you can say that, you can help each other that way. So, beloved, I know you probably have some things to say about that too, but those are just a few things I was thinking.
Thank you, beloved. You're spot on, in my opinion, in my experience. And a spiritual partnership, by the way, is a partnership between equals for the purpose of spiritual growth. And what does spiritual growth mean? Creating authentic power, aligning your personality with your soul, becoming humble and clear and forgiving and loving. All of that's authentic power, and creating it is the reason for spiritual partnerships, because you can't create authentic power for someone else, and no one can do it for you. But you can support one another, just as Linda supports me and I support her. It's a new archetype. It comes with a new consciousness, and it's replacing all of our previous relationships, friendships, business relationships, romantic relationships, marriage, which is an ancient archetype. And it comes with the new archetypes also of the new male and the new female. But we'll talk about them maybe on another time together. I want to go back to responsibility, which was your question. It's yourself you're responsible for. The universe, in my experience, did not put you here to be responsible for someone else. And as far as I can see, the reason for that is it's impossible. If somebody wants to be in pain, If somebody wants to create with anger or arrogance or righteousness or superiority, like I did for years, that's their choice. It's an unconscious choice, because no one would choose that consciously, because that creates huge pain. Distance from others, isolation, loneliness, and more anger. So, and the universe doesn't look at experiences, good or bad, successful or failing. It's a language of limitation, opportunity and limitation. It's even clearer than that. It's a language of cause and effect. When you choose an intention and act on that intention, that's a cause, and it creates consequences, and you will encounter those consequences. So if you want to continue to encounter the pain and loneliness and emptiness and despair and grief and emptiness, I said that's in your life, or whatever's in your life that's painful, keep doing what you're doing, because that will produce it. But if you want to change, then step into your life consciously. That is emotional awareness and responsible choice. And any book that we've written and anything that we do will help you to do those things. And as you pointed out, Eben, I went over all of those things again, but from different angles and with more hopefully grounded support in universal human. Because becoming authentically powerful is not a fast way to the universal human. It's a requirement. The universal human will emerge out of an authentically powerful species and a multisensory, authentically powerful species. We're becoming the multisensory species. Whether or not authentic power enters the picture depends upon you, because only you can create it. And
you mean multisensory perception is the gift from the universe, then?
Multisensory perception is the gift, and only you can create authentic power. There's so much that you begin to see and will begin to see as you open yourself to this new consciousness. It's not mystical. It's more like watching a familiar movie in black and white, and as you're watching it, suddenly it's starting to become color. So you're still seeing the same things, but there's more. There's meaning. There's things you didn't see before. You don't lose your five sensory perception. I've still got an address and a zip code and an email address too. But you begin to see your life with more depth. It takes on a new theme, a new depth. So where does responsibility enter in all of this? Here's something that only the new consciousness can show you. As you change yourself, you change the world. Now, everyone knows Gandhi was supposed to have said that, and he did say something essentially that in meaning. But every five sensory personality who thinks about that will say it's ridiculous. The idea that internal transformation can bring about external transformation. That what you do, you, one of 7.5 billion people, has any consequence at all other than 1/7.5 billionth of an impact on human consciousness. As you become multisensory, you begin to experience something else. The Lakota say the center of the universe is everywhere.
Yes.
If it's everywhere. And it is, from their perspective. What they're saying, I think, is accurate. I know is accurate. It's in you. So how do you change the universe? Not by going outside of you when the center of it is in you. You change you. The changes that you make that five sensory humans relegate to self-improvement or anger management or any of these things, they're world-changing. And they're not easy. Because it's not easy to change your life from the ground up, from unconsciousness to consciousness, from fear to love, from acting robotically to acting with intentional choices of love instead of unconscious intentions of fear, which you do with every intention of anger or jealousy or resentment, all of those things. When you start to create consciously with love, with gratitude, with appreciation, with patience, with caring, you create different consequences. Your life changes, and your experience changes. And the great universal impersonal dynamics, like the law of cause and effect or karma, still work, but the karma you're creating is different. And in my experience, in anybody's experience, it's better, it's more wonderful, it's healing, it's sane, it's grounded, it's healthy, it's fulfilling, it's vital, it's creative, it's connected.
It is a beautiful thing indeed. And I'm wondering in this discussion, it's a beautiful sense in authentic power, and especially of spiritual couples. It's or spiritual partnership. It's a beautiful kind of expression of how the whole is much greater than the sum of the parts, because it's that synthesis of effort from multiple souls working together that I think can take us so far. I would like your comments on the importance of forgiveness, forgiveness of self and others. How does that play a role in this whole dynamic?
Well, let me couple that with a question I saw in the chat. Someone said, what does this have to do with vulnerability?
Yeah, I saw that too.
With vulnerability.
Kathy, thank you for, it's so beautiful to see all your comments on here and where you're from and this beautiful multi-sensory story.
We'll send you a copy of the chat.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just beautiful.
Yes.
Well, vulnerability is an experience of fear. The loving parts of your personality are not vulnerable. They don't know what that experience is. And you don't either when you're grateful. You don't either when you're in awe of the universe. Like Linda and I lived at Mount Shasta, so we got a chance to see a great mountain every day. And an evening when the sun's setting, if the conditions are right, we see alpenglow begin to develop. That's when the mountain turns from brown and green and earth tones into slightly pastel tones and then into glowing pink tones. And the whole great mountain is glowing pink. And then at a peak, it begins to shift and to change into shades of lavender, then violet as it grows dark. And as you're watching something like that, you're not vulnerable to anything. That's not in your consciousness. As you're watching the ocean and you're realizing it's, when I'm on Maui sometimes, I walk on the beach and I look at the ocean and I realize, except for these islands I can see around me, the next stop is over 2,000 miles away in every direction. That's a feeling of awe. So there's no vulnerability in love. And as you align yourself with love, that disappears. When you are feeling vulnerable, know that you are in a frightened part of your personality or a fear-based part. Yeah. It's one that's in fear of loss, in fear of something it thinks that it can't live without.
I'd like to say a little more about that, though, beloved. I was thinking sometimes when I feel that feeling of powerlessness, I may be in a frightened part, but I still have to allow myself to feel that. You know, I feel, in fact, I could say I feel vulnerable at those times, but the purpose of my allowing myself to feel that rather than try to cover it over with something else, try to rush out and do something or scream at someone or do something to cover up that pain, I don't want to do that. I want to feel what that feels like in me. And my purpose in doing that, my intention, is so that this part of my personality that's obviously very strong because it's painful, is there, but I do not want it to control my life. So I'm willing to feel that pain of powerlessness. So I think maybe that's what the person may mean by feeling vulnerable, because it's really important to allow yourself to feel.
Well, yes, that's the larger context.
Yeah.
It's everything that you experience between your birth and your death in physical reality, we're calling the earth scroll. And the frightened parts of your personality, like feeling vulnerable or feeling loss or fear of loss, these are not obstacles to your spiritual growth. They are your avenues to spiritual growth. They are the aspects of your personality that you need to experience fully, challenge, and move beyond the control of in order to give the gifts that you were born to give. So Linda is telling you something that's at the heart of creating authentic power. Open yourself to your life, to everything. And where it's painful, know that's fear. And then make a conscious choice, a responsible choice to the extent of your ability not to act again on that energy, on that, with those thoughts, with that intention. But to feel it,
though, to feel it.
Feeling it is what gives you the opportunity to make a choice.
Right.
That's where emotional awareness is indispensable. If you don't know when you're in fear, you can't challenge it. And you don't know how big it is, this thing and energy that you're challenging. And when you do begin to see things this way, you're in a place that's remarkable. If you're a sailor, you can put it this way. There's no wind that can blow that doesn't fill your sails.
Beautiful. Well, I think that's a beautiful lesson indeed. And also it certainly helps to have a trust in the universe. And that is something that you can develop over time. That certainly helps one to more readily be less vulnerable and much more engaged in a loving relationship with the universe. I was wondering if in this discussion of the kind of transformation from 5 sensory to multi-sensory and on to universal human, how do you see the role of meditation and prayer?
Oh, that's very helpful, but let's talk again sometime, because 5 sensory prayer and multi-sensory prayer are different. 5 sensory prayer is a plea. Multi-sensory prayer is a co-creation. It's a conversation with divine intelligence, with the assumption that there is an intelligence present that is there and interested in you and listening, and with you will co-create the optimal circumstances in the domain of time, space, and matter for your spiritual development. It is a co-creation in which you share your fears and aspirations. And as far as meditation goes, it's always been helpful for me.
Yeah.
But I will also like to point out that creating authentic power is a meditation 24/7.
It's always staying aware.
And by the way, I would like, if I can, I'm so excited by all the things Linda and I are doing. One of them is creating a new website. Can't show it to you yet, but I can show you a little bit of it. You can go to universalhuman.com.
Yes, I've put that in the chat screen. And that's where people can also pre-order the book. But tell us what that's going to turn into.
Oh, beloved.
Well, Gary's going to be starting a podcast soon. We're creating an ecosystem that can support people globally. What I mean by that is Gary and I have had physical events for many, many years. Physical, and they're wonderful. We loved them. But the pandemic speeded up our process of really delving into live online events, and we are just loving it so much. So
like everybody,
we're creating some new live online events. We're creating a whole series of courses, self-study courses. We're opening up a membership community. We're doing so many things. It's like what we've wanted for a long time, and everything's just coming into being. And we'll do it more slow. We'll do it slowly, but as the book comes out on the 22nd of June, it will begin to unfold these different ways that we can all, because we're all here to support each other. If we really see that, and Gary and I are going to do what we can, do our part to support in the ways that we can, to support people in what we have been practicing for a long time, creating authentic power, being in spiritual partnership, and becoming the emerging universal humans that we all have that possibility of doing. So
eventually we'll use that URL for the Foundation for the Universal Human, a nonprofit that we've already created.
Now, how can people who want to be kept up to date on when you're launching all of this, how can people get on your mailing list? Where should they go for that?
Well, the best way, if they want to pre-order a book, they can go to the universalhuman.com. That's true. But if they want to be on our mailing list, we have a way to get on our mailing list on our website, seatofthesoul.com.
Okay.
And they can go to seatofthesoul.com and sign up.
Now, we didn't tell you about that one because it's old.
It's
and,
old.
And we're replacing it. We sent you
Right,
the
but that's how
University of
people
Linda.
could get on your mailing list so that
Yes.
you can
That
let
is
them
all.
know whenever
And
you're
they'll get
changing.
all the new information that we're doing, right? Everything we're doing.
That's wonderful.
That is a gift.
That is so great. I think so much has happened because of the pandemic. So
Yes.
many of us have found our way in different fashion than we did before. I know personally, I love staying home. So I could do webinars every day. Well, not every day, but I could do them over travel any day. So yeah, I'm so happy you're getting online.
Well, that's what I've been communicating to some of our medical groups that I participate in is why do we have to go back to flying somewhere and a big carbon footprint? We've shown during the pandemic, we can do a lot of good work on the internet and Zoom and what have you. So why go back to the bad old ways of that giant carbon footprint? Let's keep some of this momentum up to do it online.
And connect with people all over
the only reason I can think of is to hug someone.
So, right. The hugs are great. You're absolutely right.
Well, speaking of hug,
I don't know if you've been finding this, but we're finding the depth of connection on live online events is, I couldn't even have imagined, but it's so amazing. I'm just so grateful to see, and that's why I thought that's okay with me. Whether we do physical or we do live online, it doesn't make a difference to me because it's really always the connection that matters.
it's almost more intimate because you feel like you're just with the person speaking. Yeah.
It is because everyone's spotlighted when they speak, and it's so beautiful to see them. And you couldn't see them if you were in a seminar. You see the back of their head. You wouldn't really see them.
Right.
Yeah.
So we are at the end of our time together.
At the end of our hour.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
I can't believe it.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
We always end our webinar with a meditation, and it speaks to this hug that you're talking about.
Yes.
But just because we can't be with each other physically, as wonderful as that is to get a hug, we can reach out to each other spiritually and feel that binding force of love that we share. And so,
yes.
Go on, and we should say goodbye.
I just wanted to say thank you, Gary and Linda. You all have done a fantastic job. I think your book, Universal Human, which I finished a few weeks ago, is an extraordinary gift to this world. So I strongly encourage people, go out there and, get the book, read it, and learn about how all of us are shifting and all of humanity is shifting in a very positive way.
And it includes so many practical applications in all different parts of life. So it's not just theory, it's actual application.
Very good tools for the individual seeker. So congratulations on a wonderful book that you gifted this world.
And we do hope to see you in person
We
soon.
love those hugs.
We miss you.
Yes.
Oh,
May we stay a few minutes after to be in this energetic hug?
Yes, of course.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Please
So,
do.
yes, so we will formally say goodbye. And
thank you so much. It's been wonderful to be with you.
Thank you,
and
everyone.
with everyone here.
Love you too.
Yes, thank you. And I hope you will join us for the meditation. Thank you so much for spending this time with us and our audience who, a couple hundred people get on for the live broadcast, but many, many, many others watch the replay, and we receive so many more comments. So it's so wonderful. And we wish you all the best success on this online project because you can reach so many more people that you wouldn't have otherwise. But this is when we can do I love this phrase, our virtual spiritual hug, right? So you all are familiar with this meditation if you've been here before. So I invite you now to bring your attention to this moment. Here and now, calm and relaxed. Become aware of your breath as it moves in and out. Now, move your awareness to your heart center and generate a feeling of gratitude, trust, and allowing. Now, Imagine your breath is moving in and out of your heart. As you exhale, imagine your breath is filling up a bubble surrounding your entire body. As you inhale, imagine your breath is coming from all points of this bubble into your heart. Continue breathing this way. Now, from your heart center, move your awareness to below your body, down, down, all the way into the center of the earth. Feel your strong and stable connection to the earth. As you continue to breathe, imagine your exhale is filling up the entire earth. Imagine your inhale is coming back to you from all points of the earth. Continue breathing this way. Now, now, move your awareness from the center of the earth back into your body and into the heart. Using your breath, feel your heart expand to encompass all souls in your surrounding area, all souls in your entire town, all souls in your entire country. Feel your heart expand to encompass all souls in challenging situations around the globe. No soul left behind. We are all in this together. Encompass all souls from the entire earth. Feel your heart expand to encompass the united souls of earth and beyond. Now, return from your experience and remember who you truly are, a spiritual being living a spiritual purpose. Remember
that you are deeply loved and cherished forever. You have nothing to fear. You are cared for.
Yes, and with that, I will remind you that we set up that 11 a.m., no matter where you are in your time zone, to feel this energy. Imagine it expanding, radiating this love to the world around you. And if you're having a bad day, you're having a challenging moment, feel the love coming towards you. Receive that love. Open up and allow yourself to feel the love of all of humanity sending our love your way, that binding force of love. We're becoming more in touch with that. And I think that's what Gary speaks to with this multi-sensory capacity that we are all kind of, it's going to happen whether we make an effort or not. But some of us who are making the effort, we're leading the way, and all of you on this call, just feeling that love that we share with each other is half of it, probably 95% of it, right? And so thank you so much for joining us. We will be back again in 2 weeks with Nancy Rhines. And Nancy Rhines is a near-death experiencer. So she's going to share her experience. We haven't had on an experiencer for a while, so that should be very interesting. She has an amazing story.
So we look forward to seeing you all back here in 2 weeks. And until then, namaste.
Namaste.